Now, it's not often that the sport of boxing surprises me, throws me a curveball, makes me think, wow, I didn't see that coming. But recently, in an interview, Freddie Roach has stated that Manny Pacquiao might consider going for a ninth. He means a ninth weight world title. And the opponent that was mentioned, Triple G. None other than one of the most dominant middleweights we've ever seen, with one of the highest knockout percentages that there's ever been. Crazy. Absolutely crazy. Where to start with this? I think it's fair to start at the weight. With it being a ninth weight, I think it's fair to start at the weight. How big is Triple G? How big is Manny Pacquiao? Triple G, he's not a very big middleweight. In fact, he's probably a very, very good sized light middleweight. He typically gets in the ring at around 175. When he fought Kell Brook a few years back, he was 4 weeks out from the fight. There was a check weigh-in and he was weighing 165 4 weeks out, and he had to make 160. Recently, in his last fight against Derevianchenko, the IBF weighed him on the day of the fight, and they're to weigh no more than 10 pounds over the division limit. He was to weigh 170, and he made it at the second attempt, which tells me that he probably gets in the ring and fights around 175. Manny Pacquiao, on the other hand, typically in his biggest fights, he weighs well within the 147 pound limit. He weighed 144.5 against Margarito. He's weighed 145, 146. Freddie Roach said at the time he weighed 144 after having breakfast and lunch, and expects him in the ring at a shade under 150. So we're talking about a 25 pound weight difference, which is, it can't be overstated. That's huge, especially in these mid divisions. It's absolutely huge. But then you bring in the factor that when you consider Margarito got in the ring, his trainer believed that he would have been 160, 162 fighting Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao stated that after that fight that Margarito's punches hurt him. Now, that was one of Manny's best performances. If you watch the highlights on YouTube, he throws over 1,000 punches in the fight and lands at a very, very high percentage. It's quite painful to watch. It was a severe beating. Margarito, being a tough as nails, face-first fighter, just came plodding forward the entire night. It's fair to say that even though Golovkin isn't a face-first fighter, he's there to be hit. The likes of Canelo, the likes of Derevianchenko, more importantly, because it was more recently, they landed their fair number of shots on Golovkin. Now, Golovkin, he's got a chin of steel. He's been pushed back a couple of times. I've never seen him wobbled, and apparently he's never been dropped, amateur or pro. But when you look at the comparison with Manny's last really big opponent, being Margarito, and the Manny Pacquiao of now, back against Margarito, as I stated, he threw over 1,000 punches. In every one of his fights since, he didn't go over 500 punches in total output, which would suggest that he's slowed down a bit. Now, the man is 42. Manny Pacquiao is 42 years old in December. Against Thurman, which was a great win. He was an underdog going into that fight, I believe. I might be wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, but Thurman was expected to be too big, too fresh, too young, and obviously Manny put on a performance to take the title. Manny threw just under 700 punches in that fight, which is a step up from what he'd been doing previously. In Triple G's last fight, he also, against Derevianchenko, which some thought, including myself, it could have gone either way. I didn't think it was Triple G's best performance. He did blame the flu. But against Steve Rolls, he looked a little bit off the fight before Derevianchenko. Personally, I think he's looked a little bit off since the first Canelo fight. In the first Canelo fight, there's a popular opinion that Triple G deserved the decision. Personally, when I saw it, I was watching with a friend of mine. He was convinced Triple G had won. I thought, I'm not sure. They might have looked at Canelo's cleaner work. If Triple G had won that fight with 2 rounds, fair enough, I wouldn't have argued. If it had been a draw, I wasn't going to argue. If they gave it to Canelo by about 2 rounds, again, I wasn't going to argue. It was one of those kinds of fights. But since that fight, Triple G has not looked the same for me. So what do we have now? Now, I know Freddie has said this, Manny hasn't said it, Triple G hasn't said it. But if they were to fight right now, would Triple G, at this stage in his career, we know he still hits very hard, because the last thing a fighter loses is his punch. He's 38, I believe, so he's a couple of years past his absolute peak. But he still hits very hard. He can still cut the ring down. He can cut the ring down more effectively than Margarito cuts the ring down. And he can throw around the region of 700 punches. He's got that kind of cardio ability left in his body. And now you put him against Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao, 42 in December, as I said. Still capable of throwing 700 punches a fight. Exactly the same number. In terms of the style, we know that Manny can't be as quick on his feet as he was when he was fighting the likes of Margarito. Naturally, it's one of those things that age slows. He's already admitted that Margarito hurt him with his punches. Would a 38-year-old Triple G be able to beat effectively a 42-year-old Manny Pacquiao? I think so. I think this is a step too far. I can completely understand why some people would want to see it. You know, Manny is still very fast. He's not the speed demon that he was, but he's still very fast. He's still got a high punch output. He's still fairly hard to hit, moving in and out, slashing punches. Triple G would take a few, but ultimately I think Golovkin would catch up with Manny as soon as those hooks start landing. More importantly, if he starts landing to Manny's body. I can't see the Pacman taking 12 rounds of it. I'm not sure I'd want to see the Pacman taking 12 rounds of it, purely because with great fighters and with such a dangerous sport, would it be foolhardy to even attempt a 9th weight world title? Now, I'm not ashamed to say, if the fight goes ahead, I'm going to watch it. I'm absolutely going to watch it. Am I going to like what I see? Am I going to like what unfolds? I'm not too sure. If Manny does this, then I don't know what that does. I know it enhances his legacy, but to what point? I don't know. 9 weights, a world champion at every single weight, against the most dangerous middleweight of arguably the last 20 years. Granted, he isn't quite in his prime, but that's still a very, very dangerous fighter when you give him a 25-pound weight advantage. I'm sure we'll hear more in the next few days, weeks on this. But Manny Pacquiao versus Triple G. Could it happen? We're just going to have to wait and see.